When you're a person who is here to exist and channel in a way that is foreign to most people, or most people at least in your society or surrounding vicinity, it can be incredibly hard to tap into your own natural flow and your own intuitive flow of knowledge. If you're someone like this who was always looking for guidance from your peers and your teachers, but only found information that didn't quite sit right with your spirit or didn't feel quite tailored to you, maybe you tried to make that information fit. Trying your best to follow the rules, follow the expectations of what people wanted for you, and kind of constricting yourself along the way. Hiding, constraining your own natural intuition, your own natural knowing. Maybe you ended up pushing away your own inner voice, that inner wisdom you hold within, so that you could no longer hear it. Many of what I'll call the wise ones here on this planet try to exist in a way that is untrue to their spirits, but is socially convenient. This usually doesn't work out super seamlessly, as you can imagine. When you are working outside of alignment for what your soul craves and wants to do, it's very easy to fall into burnout and to feel like you're failing and perhaps maybe having literal failures in whatever it is you're trying to do that is not in line with who you are. You can have this growing sense of emptiness within, like this dissatisfaction with who you are, what you're doing, and where you are in your life. Many people, many of these wise ones will come to this space and then have that inner realization, that epiphany, that where they are and what they're doing is not aligned with who they are and is not what they should be putting their energy into. Many realize that they are here to be the waymakers and maybe even the soul leaders in whatever vertical, like art, it doesn't matter what it is. They realize that they are here to be the waymakers that they needed when they were a kid that they didn't have. This ends up leading a lot of us into spirituality and into the spiritual community and the psychic realm, psychic gifts, and it is through that we learn more about who we are, how we can kind of reconnect any psychic abilities we may have shut down, or our own wisdom. Here in the spiritual space, we try to identify who we are and what we really want to do here and why it matters. This, so far, is probably a story you've heard before. However, I don't think this is where the story ends. I think there is a next step on this journey, and it is a step that I don't hear talked about very often, and I would like to bring some attention to it. This step is learning discernment and learning not to devalue your own inner knowing. So throughout my own spiritual journey here, I have learned a lot. I've worked a lot with discernment, and I wanted to share something I feel like we are missing when it comes to teaching others channeling. I have witnessed a lot of channelers teaching to connect upwards, like to connect to some kind of energy or frequency that is above you in some sense, like maybe it's an angel or another higher guide, and having them give you information by you opening upwards and allowing that information to flow down and kind of encode within you. The important distinction here that we'll have to keep in mind is that this information, this energy, is coming from a source outside of your own, generally speaking. Generally, when you are connecting in this way with this practice, you are connecting to other beings or other energies that, we are all connected, but is still a distinct energy from you and your own soul. Now, let me be very clear. I do not think there is anything wrong with this practice. Of course, if you're trying to learn more, you will try and connect to other beings or entities or awarenesses outside of yourself that may have more knowledge on whatever topic it is you are trying to find more information on. I do feel, however, that this method on its own, without first a development and a practice of inner knowing and, channeling from the soul, does lack a certain amount of groundedness when it comes to interpreting and identifying the truth of the information coming through. Or at least that's a concern I have and something I've seen. If you are always deferring and changing your canon based on what another being thinks, what their opinion is, and their perspective, you are kind of leaving yourself vulnerable to channeling things that are not truly within your own alignment. And you won't even know that this is happening if you haven't developed a practice of knowing who your soul is and what your soul stands for. You may find yourself in a space where you've looked at your society around you, you've realized that the information that you were being given is not good information for you in particular, and that your inner guidance is stronger and more pertinent to your life than anything another person has or could tell you about yourself. And then you may find yourself after doing that process of, kind of empowering yourself to follow your own inner guidance, you could reach, certain aspects of the spiritual community and be implicitly taught that information coming from another source, that is more important and more required than developing and continuing to work on your own inner knowing or the wisdoms coming out of your own soul. My problem with this is I don't feel like we are balanced when we are overvaluing the, perspectives or opinions of other beings. These aren't always God. It's not always God you're channeling, right? It's maybe another being from another planet or another system or layer or realm of existence. But I do feel like it's unbalanced to kind of emphasize the value that opinion has while kind of discarding your own inner wisdom as like a lesser form of truth. Like, why would we not be trying to connect the knowings and the wisdom of our piece of source inside of us, our immortal, wise soul, with, other informations we could hear from other beings who also have their own knowings and wisdom? Should it not be working together? And if your soul is telling you something is wrong, shouldn't we be training ourselves to follow that? I'm not saying that people aren't doing this. I just felt like sometimes I feel an imbalance in this way, in how we treat information from other sources as higher than what our own soul tells us. When it comes to what you need and what's right for you to share, say, or what you stand for, you should defer to your soul, not somebody else's soul. So I mentioned a lot of channeling is like energies and encodings coming down through the chakra system. And while that's perfectly valid, I would also like to supplement it with another practice. Instead of solely doing that, how do you think you would feel if you instead try to channel from lower centers in your own body? When I say lower centers, I don't mean like connecting to an external source, like a lower entity or a lower realm. I'm talking about within your own energetic system. Think of the lower chakras in the body, the lower parts of your body, and think the belly up to the heart. You may absolutely seek wisdom and guidance from outside sources beyond your own soul. Of course you can. But I just think that this practice will help you better identify when these messages from other beings or entities or, people, whatever it may be, isn't quite right for you. This is where we can find wisdom within, from the soul and not the ego. The ego is usually bumping around in your head, while wisdoms can also enter your mind, of course, necessarily. If we kind of connect to the lower realms, the feeling, the intuitive, your power centers, like the waters of your belly, that will help you identify much better of what's a gut thing, what's something your soul knows and your soul is telling you. This, to me, is really valuable information, because I think there's a tendency to be too open and too accepting of the information that is received, just because you kind of set up a sacred space and declare that you're only okay with beings who are aligned with, whatever. You can declare that, but in my experience, it doesn't have to be like a negative evil being for it to have information that isn't quite literally true, and may not be right for you to share or right for you. If you prioritize a practice of rooted knowing, you put the power back in your own hands. giving you an edge up on, you know, any being, not necessarily an evil being or a bad being or one that's out to get you. It does not have to be so dramatic whatsoever, but just one who may have a specific, you know, version of events they want portrayed. Maybe they believe it's for the right reason, for sure, but you'll have an edge up on knowing that I don't know if this information is right with me, I don't know if this sits right with me, and therefore I think I'm going to have to do more digging or sit with it longer before I share this information. There is nobody on this planet who knows what's better for you more than you, and that's kind of the whole point of the video, really. And the point of like this additional version of channeling. I just always hear about channeling as you connect to a higher being than you, and then you just receive that information, and it seems, whether it's said implicitly or even if it's denied, it feels like you just accept it. And I've seen things channeled that are like not true at all, from people who are extremely gifted and mean absolutely well. So I just feel like it's something worth saying. So thank you so much. If you've watched this whole video, I really hope, or if not, I really hope it is supportive to your journey. I hope this is helpful for you. And yeah, thank you for being here. If you like spiritual content like this, soul language, meditations occasionally, and sometimes I share my art here, maybe consider following the channel. But yeah, thank you for being here, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Thank you, and goodbye.